Welcome to Grapple Games TV. This is Nicholas Wright.
And this is Craig Lucas.
We're here with another Friday Night Magic game at Grapple. And here we go. We have Derek Potter with Mono Blue Devotion versus Craig Lucas with Green-White Devotion, Splash Black.
Yeah, green-black Devotion, Splash White.
All right. Looks like we have Shocklands in here from both of them to begin with. Great way to fix your mana, especially with mana being so good in this format. Do you think it's really a reason why? I mean, he's mono blue, but he's just playing a Shockland for added value.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting.
Speaking with this is the first time me watching this, but you've seen this game. Does he have any white spells in there? They could be casting off that? I mean, I imagine if you put them in, he would, but...
Yeah, it's not immediately obvious what they might be. I mean, I've played Derek several times before. Most everything in there is blue. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe he changed it up a little bit.
All right. It looks like right off the bat he started off with 2 Hypnotic Sirens. Is that something that's really a problem for you? Do you got a way to answer those flyers in there?
Other than the removal that I have in the deck, I don't have any answers until I get to Arbor Colossus.
That'll definitely help. Let's see. Can't see his hand exactly, but we'll see if he has anything to follow up with.
Yeah, Nykthos of his own.
Yep, seeing that there. Into a Hall of Triumphs. Making 2 2/2s in the air, because it can make any creatures of one color for him get +1/+1. He, obviously here being mono blue, selected blue.
Yep, and that starts off being an even bigger problem for me, taking twice as much damage than I would have.
What's your thoughts about him running Nykthos in the main? You see a lot of mono blue Devotion deck, but they're mostly Devotion either for Thassa or Master of the Waves. Do you think it's a wise choice for him having Nykthos to boost into the other spells, or do you think that just slowed him down too much?
I don't know. I think it's actually useful to play in this deck. I mean, Master of Waves is ultimately where he would like to get to, and with other cards in the deck, including Nightveil Spectre, you can get Devotion ramped up pretty quickly, and to the point where Nykthos, into a Master of Waves can be a problem.
Yeah. Look in there. Turn 3 Courser play definitely seems to be one of the things to do on turn 3 in this format. Do you think it's one of the all-stars of your deck?
Nykthos?
Courser.
Courser. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of value there. 4 toughness is a challenge for many decks, especially in the early game. And the life gain that goes along with it when you play land is beneficial as well.
Yeah, it should help out a lot here in this versus a aggro deck, obviously looking to beat you down. All right, we have a Nightveil Spectre. Looks like the aerial beats keep on coming.
Yeah, definitely putting the pressure on here because I, of course, have no answer for flyers. And with Nightveil Spectre, once he starts connecting, he's going to start stealing cards off the top of the deck, which can become a problem all by itself.
That's almost a reason just to have that Hallowed Fountain in there by itself. I mean, it produces blue, and hey, you randomly play white decks, randomly play their spells.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do you remember if you had Arbor Colossus in hand at this point?
I do not. I do remember, and I don't have it in there.
All right. What do you consider? Is it just the Nightveil Spectre that's really the biggest threat here?
That's the one that I'm mostly concerned about because of the card that it extracts off the top of my deck. And you just never know what it might, steal and be able to turn around and use against you.
All right. Looks like you're going to play a Nissa here. Definitely a threat of your own. Fortunately, you're not going to be able to make one that can just up and attack here because you are currently tapped out. Let's see. Oh, yep. Nissa does tap the Overgrown Tomb. It is a swamp forest.
Yeah, generally a pretty handy ability to be able to untap up to 4 forests. I don't think I had anything in hand that I could really untap and lay down. Obviously I didn't, but generally pretty nice to be able to potentially net 1 drop Nissa,
Sure.
pay her 5 and get 4 back.
I'm not sure, but do I see an ultimate price in your hand?
I think you do. One of the removals that I'm running in this deck.
Yeah, there's an unfortunate thing about Night Veil Spectre. It does not go down to ultimate price.
Indeed.
Yeah. Time Biter, in this case, is pretty unfortunate against that Courser, because they'll just keep it tapped for as long as it's out.
It does keep it tapped, but it doesn't prevent the abilities from triggering, so that's...
Yeah, those lands off the Courser is a form of card advantage. Every time you draw a land off that, you're just getting 2 better spells, and it's essentially a free land.
True. Ultimate Price doesn't operate on Night Veil Spectre, but it does take care of one of the Sirens, no problem.
Yeah, they'll definitely give you some breathing rooms here, but it does look like you are getting beat down pretty quickly. It's still taking 4 every turn in there. How worried are you about that 4 in there?
I'm extremely worried at this point because I still have no answer. I used the 1 ultimate price I had to take out 1 of the 3 flyers, but 2 remain, and they're going to continue coming at me.
Yeah, and if you ever have to use the Caridid for mana, you can also get in with the Tidebinder. But it does look like there's land on top there.
There is a forest on top.
Do you remember what's in your hand? What the game plan here to win is?
Trying to remember what's going on here. Elvish Mystic comes up on top. I know at this point I still don't have an answer for the flyers, which means I don't have any kind of removal that's going to be relevant, or I don't have Arbor Colossus, even though I have the mana that I would be able to cast him if I did. So no, at this point I'm thinking I'm just in trouble.
Luckily, you do have Nissa out, so you can go ahead and make those 4/4 elementals, and that is making a 4/4 a turn. This unless he has an answer to that or the elementals. I mean, this is a race. He's doing. I apologize earlier. I said 4. He's doing 5 to you in there because the Night Veil Spectre is swinging for 3 right now.
Yep.
But you're swinging for 4 and then 4. I mean, that can add up to game really quickly. So even though the Flyers have you on a 3-turn clock, you have him on pretty much the same.
True. About the only thing that I can really do at this point is I do have an Ajani mentor in hand. So I cast him and hope that I can use his card draw to find something that will be helpful.
Yeah. Johnny, Mentor of Heroes, immediately comes out and pretty much draws you a card. It's one of the most blue Johnnies we've ever seen, despite it not actually being blue.
And this is the only card in the deck that I need a white source for.
Yeah, that's one of the just huge things about Sylvan Caridid. The fact that it can make any color of mana just allows for, these 2 colors, splash, whatever you need, so that you can just play the best spells, even if they happen to be just a mana symbol off. As long as you're running 4 Caridids, you can have the occasional white or whatever your splash color is. And especially at least until rotation, the mana is just so good with shock lands and temples, all featuring 10 color combinations, and the occasional pain lands, which feature the other 5. mana confluence if you want it. You can really just run whatever colors you want and only have that occasionally be a problem.
Yeah, that is true. Definitely adds to the flexibility. So I pulled the top 4 cards off the deck with Ajani, and lo and behold, happened to find an Arbor Colossus, which I sorely needed.
All right, looks like Derek's down to 1 card in hand. Let's see if it's something that can deal with an Arbor Colossus. If not, things look pretty dire for him.
I have 3 lands of Fortune of this.
All right, we got a brief glimpse of his hand there. We see that he did draw a Frostburn Weird. Unfortunately, that's not going to really match up to an Arbor Colossus or even Nissa right now. Things are looking pretty bad for Derek and pretty good for you. Are you feeling pretty good at this point about the game?
I am feeling much better having found that Arbor Colossus, definitely. That'll give me an answer against the Flyers. It'll make it pretty much, well, certainly make it much more difficult for him to just swing in freely with the Flyers like he's been able to do all game to this point. And if I can stem that tide, I should be able to come up with answers for the guys on the ground.
Yeah, with Derek top decking, his ability of finding answers is looking pretty scarce. And he luckily so far hasn't really found a way to cast any of those spells he's been stealing. So that really aspect of Night Veil Spectre in this matchup really hasn't been doing much.
True.
Revealing an Overgrown Tomb there with Courser. Cards keep on coming. So at this point, you're pretty much just considering running out the Arbor Colossus, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Looks like the thought there was, were you deciding whether Overgrown to come in tapped or untapped?
Exactly, yep. I was doing the math to figure out what I wanted to play for the turn and whether I could afford it without that land coming in untapped.
Looks like your devotion count's pretty good too, with the 2 green off of Courser, 2 green off of Nissa, 1 and 1 off of the Caratid. That's got up to 6. That means Nykthos is effectively just tapping for 3.
Yeah, it's not bad, and here comes Garrick for an additional 2 to devotion. So devotion to green's up to 8 at this point.
I'm sorry, my math on that was off earlier. It's tapping for even more than that. It's tapping for 4.
Yeah, by itself. Yeah, total of 6 with the activation. That goes up to 8, and now it's going to go up to 11. So we should have the mana that we need to work with at this point.
Yeah, the monstrous cost on Arbor Colossus there only being 6. That really can just snipe off any flyer.
Right, and with Garrick out, the ability to be able to draw into some additional creatures, I'm definitely feeling better about the game at this point.
Yeah, this match seems pretty much almost over. I mean, what can I even do? Cyclonic Rift, maybe? Just hope to peel that, activate Nykthos and cast it?
Perhaps that would help. At this point, I still like my chances with Derek top decking and with the Planeswalkers remaining after a Rift. Or would they?
Oh, it's all non-land permanents, so
it would be gone.
Planeswalkers would be swept up too.
I forget what I had in my hand, though, but I had a few cards to work with.
I kind of have it already. Did you lose that much money in Vegas?
Yeah, quite a sizable board as compared to his. Drew a Night Veil Spectre there, but it's just really not doing anything. It's practically almost just a blank. I mean, at this point with your board state, the nice thing that about you being able to go over the aggro player's head here is that he's drawing so many cards that are just blank. I mean, they just do almost nothing, as opposed to almost everything you're drawing into is live and useful in this matchup. He was just hoping this much mana just never happened.
Yeah. I definitely early game he had the jump on me, but Ajani into the Arbor Colossus turned things around for me.
Yeah, it turned out to be a pretty fast start from Derek there, but I mean, you just held on long enough, and that's what's going to happen. Is if the aggro deck doesn't get them quickly, they're just going to have so much mana, and their spells, the Planeswalkers, just net so much incidental card advantage that it's pretty hard for an aggro deck to dig themselves out of that, especially when they're just not expecting to be here. But by this point in the game, if they don't have you down to a point where they can kind of sneak in and kill you, they really don't have much, especially with the mono blue. At this point, this is why they run that Cyclonic Rift, is that they're hoping they can get you low enough, they can get to that Cyclonic Rift, activate Nykthos, return all your permanents, and then just end the game there.
Yep, and so Derek cast a second Night Veil Spectre here.
Yeah, it's even going to be almost impossible for him to overwhelm your Colossus, because next turn you're going to be able to monstrous it and just snipe the other Spectre.
Right, which is one of the reasons why I was a little bit surprised that he swung in there with the 2 flyers, including the Night Veil Spectre #1, to just basically be killed outright by blocking with the Arbor Colossus. And now I'm set up to where I can this turn monstrous the Colossus and take out the other Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, with that's going to leave Derek with a total of 2 5 power without the Blister Core Weird. What he really could just be thinking it is hoping for the Rift. Just trying to get you down to the lowest life point total and hoping to just draw the Rift.
Yep. And now I have Arbor Colossus #2 sitting on the top of my deck.
Yeah, things are looking pretty bad, especially since the one card he's looking for is probably a 1, maybe 2 of in his deck, at most. You definitely wouldn't mind another Tidebinder Mage. Potentially drop that, put your lock your Colossus down. But that's more of a long-term plan here, and any long-term plan is just out the window. He's not winning this game on the long term, and even though it's 20-7, the Planeswalker are just providing such an inevitability that he's pretty much. It feels like there's not much he could draw.
Yeah, there's a big swing in the match to this point, to where definitely feeling good about it. The Nissa clock is ticking in the background. If it comes to it. So yeah, you're right. Pretty much the one card that could help him at this point is the Rift.
And just even more cards off Groot, Color of the Beast.
Yeah, that's the main reason that he's in this deck, is for that card draw to be able to reload in the later stages.
He shows up, I'm freaking out,
Although at times his ability, I used it in the earlier in this game, the ability to drop a green creature from your hand onto the field, at times is nice too. But the real reason to have him in the deck is for that card draw.
Yeah, especially against all those flyers. His other ability can definitely set up some nice plays, like maybe minus him, drop an Arbor Colossus, and then use your unspent mana to activate the Arbor Colossus.
Exactly.
And get that double value off it. Another Nykthos there. It's definitely nice with the legendary rule that you can just activate Nykthos, chain into another Nykthos.
Yeah, it's become one of my favorite maneuvers in the game for devotion.
At what point are you scared of potentially overcommitting to the board? Like, there's a certain point where you have them dead. Is there any point where you like not wanting to play your creatures because of a potential board wipe, or were you just playing them all out of hand?
I probably wasn't paying as much attention to the possibility of a rift as I should have been. Because at this point in the game, I actually have no cards in hand. Maybe it looks like one card in hand, which I think might be another land. I don't remember.
And especially with Rift, it doesn't really matter that much, as there's not... At this point, his only hope is for him to have gotten that and killed you on the swing with Blister Coil Weird, Tiebinder Mage, and Hypnoc. If that just happened and you got to untap again, there wouldn't be too much hope unless he got you to the point where you were low enough that he could immediately swing in no matter what you played.
Yeah, and that's a Frostburn Weird, by the way.
Sorry about that.
Blister Coils, older vintage, I believe.
Yeah, quite so. I see the Is It symbol. I see Weird. I see blue-red.
But yeah, it's a really good point. I probably did overextend, and if a rift had come out, I might have just been in trouble.
And that's a case of me just overthinking it there, because at this case, I mean, a rift would be bad anyway, and playing all of your creatures is giving you more protection against him, say, playing more Tidebinder Mages or just random stuff. It's probably a more correct line to go ahead and play the creatures in hand than, Cyclonic Rift would just put them back in your hand anyway. So are you worried about that Thassa making things unblockable, or do you think you pretty much have this sealed up?
At this point, I really wasn't too worried. She was offline at this point. I think his devotion to blue is 4, so she's not a creature. Still has the unblockable ability, but no real threats on that side of the board at this point. And from what we can see on my side, no shortage of threats, so feeling pretty good about it at this point in the game.
So I see a Terra Stomper on that side. What are your thoughts on it?
I like it. I experimented with it a little bit and decided to add a couple of copies in this deck. It's an 8/8 that can't be countered for 6. It also has 3 devotion to green, which of course I like in this deck. So I've kept them in there for now.
Yeah, Derek's still holding on here. Things have looked pretty bleak for him for a while, but as is the case when the aggro deck is losing, it usually is a slow stretch from when the aggro deck has actually lost the game to when the game's actually over. Especially with him having lost all offensive capabilities, I don't think there's a card in his deck he could draw to save him this game. It's pretty much all but decided.
And that's game 1.
Yep. Moving on to game 2, was there any interesting sideboarding decisions did you make?
No, right now this deck sideboard is primarily keyed towards mono black, so I didn't really have anything to side in against this deck.
So you just ran the deck again as is?
Just running the same deck as is, yep.
What do you think about his decision to go on the draw?
He didn't actually, interestingly enough. No, he had milled down to 5, I believe. And he was actually on the play, but he didn't have a land.
Oh, wow.
So it appeared as though he was on the draw, but he actually played.
You definitely wonder at what point do you just go down to 4? I mean, especially with no lands in hand. Apparently, it worked out. He was able to get a hallowed fountain in relatively short time, but at that point, it just feels really far behind.
I don't know. He had a decent start if he could get land, but yeah, starting with no land there, definitely a risk. Apparently he felt it was one worth taking at that point rather than going down to 4, which can be a challenge all unto itself. So here Derek has a Cloudfin out, evolved once so that get to the point where he can start swinging with it for 1 damage at a time right now. The Siren out, he can start doing 2 per, again in the air. And I don't remember at this point if I had any answers in hand or not.
Well, regardless, you have to be feeling pretty good with the double Courser, because at that point, you're gaining 2 life per land drop. That just has to seem like an insurmountable hill for any aggro deck to just climb up, because they're all about getting you down to 0 as fast as possible. And with gaining 2 life off of every land you draw, it seems really hard to what they would even do to come out of that.
It's true. I mean, it's sort of the next best thing to having a direct answer for the Flyers is being able to keep up with the damage that the Flyers are doing with the land drops.
Yeah, it's just another reason that Courser's proving to just be an absolute all-star for the green decks. Like, it just has absolutely everything that decks that aren't aggro decks are looking for. It has the 4 power, the 4 toughness, even the 2 power is relevant. Mm-hmm. The fact that it doesn't just block low guys, it can kill them.
Yep, true. And here I'm swinging for 2. So yeah, definitely. And the devotion angle, which of course I appreciate. So yeah, there's a lot of value in the Courser Crufix package.
It's one of the reasons that mono blue really is as good as it is because trying to get through the 4 can be just difficult. So it's either playing on going in the air above it or just having so much of Master of Waves kind of going around it and swarming.
Yep. So here Derek brought out a Tidebinder Mage and tapped down one of the coursers. But again, of course, the ability of the courser will still activate. So still able to gain that life each time I play a land.
And that Tidebinder really can't get in for anything anyway because of the other courser blocking it.
True.
So do you run basics in your deck?
I do. In this iteration, I'm running 9 basic lands. Of course, all in forest.
And with those scry lands there, how many have you gotten up to as far as those go?
The scry lands, I'm running three scry lands in this deck. All of them the Temple of Malady. And then a full play set of the overgrown tomb. And also a full playset of Nykthos while we're on the subject.
Yeah, it's really amazing that even though it is a legendary land and you can't have two out at the same time, that's just proven so useful that you just run four anyway. That if two come up, I mean, that's fine, especially considering that you can double activate them.
Yes. Yeah, I don't mind seeing two early on in a game for the most part. If I happen to get, log jammed a third one in there, sometimes that can be a little bit inhibitive, but it's kind of a key card in this deck.
With Abrupt Decay being revealed off the course here, this game's just got to feel terrible for Derek, because not only have you just shown him removal there, have two coursers out gaining 2 life a turn, but you're drawing removal as well, and you're the one who wants the game to go long. Derek, if the game goes long for him, the game just kind of sputters out. So every removal spell you play is just getting further and further toward where you want the game to be.
True. And on a relative basis, I definitely much better start for me this game than last game, and in a much better position in the early game. So unlike the first game where out of the gate and for the first several turns I felt really uncomfortable and needing answers and needing them fast. In this game, totally different start. Started out relatively comfortable and still so at this point in the game.
Yeah, it would definitely require a series of really good draws from Derek and almost blanks from you to have this go in his favor at all, because he sees the Polychronos coming. That's something about Corsair as well. If you're winning, you can kind of just, your opponent can kind of just see the doom coming, just on top of the deck.
It's true, and Polychronos is definitely a nice card to have on the top of the deck at this point. I'm set up to be able to use it and do some damage when it monstrouses.
There's a Nissa out as well. Planeswalkers have to be just almost impossible to deal with. Once again, going back to Cyclonic Rift, really seems to be Mono Blue's only answer to Planeswalkers. And even then, it's so temporary. They come out, practically have haste. They come out, do their ability right away. So Cyclonic Rift is such a temporary answer. Just bouncing one and having it immediately come back on you. Not to mention that Derek hasn't drawn a third land yet, so he's stuck with like Night Veil Specters in his hands. He just can't play.
True, and this goes back to the start of 5 cards with no land, and he just never recovered from there to this point.
That's a lot of Magic as well. Just a series of calculated risks. There was the chance that he wouldn't draw land for quite a while. In that case, this would have been pretty much a no game. But he thought it was better to take the chance with. He saw that he had the Cloudfin Raptor. He saw that he had the Hypnotic Siren. That he thought, well, if I get one land, I'll start having threats in there. But turns out just was not enough.
Yeah, the more I've played with Nissa, the more I really like her. Being able to turn lands into 4/4s if you need them. You either need them on the offensive or defensive side of things. It definitely adds another element to the game.
Yeah, she certainly does make a flock of elementals, a gaggle of elementals. Not quite sure what you call multiples of them, but kind of just do roam in a pack.
Beginning of each end step. I gain 5 more life this time.
All right, Nykthos getting activated for its devotion here, which is quite substantial. And once again, into another Nykthos. Just double that amount.
Looks like 9 current devotion to green.
That is quite a fair bit.
My mistake, 7, I think. 7, 2, 4, 6, 7 devotion to green at this point. Now we're going to 9.
Yeah, at this point to Derek, that number might as well have been infinite. Like, you're going to play almost your entire hand, Acthos Polychronos to kill one of his things.
Yeah, so here I'm pumping some mana into monstrosity ability of Polychronos.
It must be really nice to have a Polychronos and other monstrous abilities to really give you an outlet for that seemingly infinite mana.
It really is.
What was your biggest Polychronos today?
It's not unusual to monstrous Polychronos for 10 or more.
Oh, looks like there it is. Cleaned up quite nicely. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think you were favored for that? You have a good matchup against Moblin?
I think so. I think this is a pretty decent matchup generally. Unfortunately, game 2 there, Derek, milling down to 5 and then going in no land. I mean, that was kind of tough. Made it an uphill battle for him on game 2 there. Game 1, different story. He had the early jump on me, and I was able to come back. I got the right cards, the key cards, exactly when I needed them, and that's what Magic's all about. If you can do that, you'll win more often than not.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you at home for listening. This has been Grapple Games TV. We hope you join us next week.